Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are, because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and we're going mudletting with Tom Carberry. Yeah, okay. All right, so the other day I was watching Tom Carberry's latest, Jesus in the Old Testament Part 2, and he hit upon something that really struck a chord with me regarding the changes in the English language and how it developed. And I really think that relates to what I've been finding in my Poe story here and coming out of Sherwood Forest with the Byrons and the Disneys and so forth. And so I was so excited by this connection that I had to call him. And so he was gracious enough to speak with me and to allow me to record the conversation. So we're going to come in kind of in the middle here. I have to catch him up to speed a little bit on what's been going on with the Poe Chronicles. And I do kind of spoil what's coming in the next video or so, but c'est la vie. So, there's nothing to watch in this one. It's just our conversation. So sit back, relax, enjoy your favorite time of day beverage. If you're doing something, by all means, continue to do it. If you're making eggs, I like mine over easy with a side of butter toast. But otherwise, enjoy this one and have a great weekend, guys. Remember, just because you don't know the truth doesn't mean you can't have fun with the lies. All right, have fun, guys. Be the editor that he was, because he was editor of magazines up and down the East Coast. Right at that time when magazines were... Edgar Allan Poe, yes.
Okay.
Right at this time when, magazines were really coming to be a part of people's lives, so they could be used as, subtle mind control. You read something, you believe it, kind of thing. And
just like today.
Right, exactly. Right. And so with tying his family back the way that I have to Sherwood Forest and what was coming out of there, the stories of Robin Hood and who the Byrons were, and now Disney is there as well. Seeing this Leonard Poe as the court physician, here's a guy who knows what's going on. He's got eyes and ears everywhere. And not only that, his son-in-law becomes the page of the bedchamber for King James. So even closer contact.
Yeah, you have to wonder what the page of the bedchamber does.
Right. He and his name is Ramsay, and I have to wonder if he's related somewhere down the line to Gordon Ramsay. Because nobody could scrub a king's bollocks better than a Ramsay.
Well, because it's a very small world of these people. There's just really a few people involved. Maybe like 100 families or something like that.
Yeah.
And the names just repeat over and over and over again.
And so now what's coming on with me? Like I said, watching your video here, and let me bring that back up a little bit. And you're talking about the change in the English language from Sir Gawain, the Green Knight, and I have to wonder now, like these earliest copies, kind of date from this, as you were saying. There's no written, as Fomenko said, no written records before like 1000 AD.
Yeah.
So the change in the language from Sir Gawain to Shakespeare, and that's, right at the time that the Poes, the Disneys, and the Byrons are all there. But what else is going on in the world, or at least in the court, is that's when the plantation of America is happening. Sir Francis Drake goes out.
Yeah, the repopulation of America, I think, is what it really was.
Right. Well, that's the point I'm trying to make is, and I have Francis Drake brought up. They send him out. He's one of the earliest to, circumnavigate, quote unquote. And the intel that he has, but also Sir Walter Raleigh is a part of the court at this time. So Poe is getting that information as well, and the London Company starts, the Virginia Company and John Smith and all this exploration. What information are they really bringing back? Because when you look at like the buildings, and this is where the mud flood kind of angle plays in, if there were big structures here, like Roman style palaces, obelisks,
Yes.
I believe...
And railroads, like you did in one of your earlier videos.
Yes. If the infrastructure for this stuff was all already here, who were they really finding? What were if they were even Indian savages at all, and not just another conquest?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying here. Who knows?
So with the, and again, with the universe, everything's coming out at the same time. The university system is really starting to spread its influence, and break away its from religion in that sort of illusion of choice.
Well, see, I didn't put this in the video because it was way too long already. Okay, but the universities in England, one of the things they really were focusing on were languages.
Yes.
And there were disputes and people kicked out and nobody seemed to speak the Hebrew language, which was strange because here these people are supposedly translating the Hebrew Bible into the King James, okay, but they didn't have people that actually spoke Hebrew. That was a big problem, okay. It was a big problem in the English universities,
yep.
and so they were trying to get Jewish people to come, and it was a really big problem for them.
That's interesting because did you know that Yale University was founded as a school for Hebrew?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have that exact information, but because I went up to Yale over the summer, this last summer. And I took a bunch of pictures. I was going to do a video about it, but when I started doing the research into Yale and having to bring it back to the Massachusetts Bay Colony and all of that, I kind of I said, no, I mean, that's going to take me, it's going to take, it'll take me forever, and it's going to take me away from Baltimore, which I really didn't want at the time. So eventually that stuff will happen. But yeah, Yale was set up. It was a Hebrew school.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of the basis for Yale University, which would have been in the late 1600s, early 1700s.
Yeah, I'm Googling that right now. How Hebrew came to Yale.
And that there's really interesting stories in there.
Yeah, and see, Yale obviously has some type of big hidden role in there. Like you said, Skull and Bones.
Oh yeah.
And which is the Jolly Roger, which is the Pirates.
And which is also just the one they let us know about. I mean.
Yeah. Well, the strange thing is everything seems to actually be out there. Who knows how much is actually hidden? The problem is there's so much. It's trying to decipher it, figure it out.
Exactly. That's almost everything is a red herring.
Yeah. And you go down one path and it leads you to another path, and then you're circling back, and it's very difficult to figure anything out.
Oh, so we're getting sidetracked now. So, as happens when I'm in front of a screen here, but I don't think it's there's really something coming together around this. And the idea that they were looking to, either convert, an already existing population, or enslave them mentally, with the government, or they're creating the foundation for an expected wave of new people, like if there was some, and especially with so few families. And that's what I think when I look back at this history, the way that I have, and the stories that are told about these families, it doesn't really mention much about the peasants or what the general population would be like. Everything is sort of confined.
I think there was a very big depopulation event.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that there was a big depopulation event. I think that they really, at some point, massacred large numbers of people, and that's where we get euphemisms, like the Black Plague and stuff like that. But a lot of that, I think, was actually just killing.
Yeah.
And so then they had to repopulate somehow, and it took a long time.
Right.
And that's why populations now are like, booming. But before, they didn't have that many people. It was hard to get people going. I actually have I don't know if I still have it, but I used to have a book that was what was it called? It was written by a couple of Jewish guys back in the 1930s or 40s. It was a very important book. I have a blank on its name, but they talked about how population and lack of population was very important in labor movements, and in bringing people up to out of poverty, and how there were in Europe they used to have laws that didn't allow people to leave their country. Because they needed the people,
right?
And because they just didn't have enough to do what they needed done,
right?
And that went on for quite a long time.
Anti-immigration.
What's that?
Anti-immigration,
Anti-immigration. Yes, it was and they had maximum wage laws too in Europe because the rich just didn't want to pay people, and if the free market, since there were very few people available to work, people were asking for a lot of money, and so they made these maximum wage laws. So no, you're not getting that. Yeah, I have to start watching your videos again, Andrew. I'm sorry that I haven't.
Oh, no, never.
I've only been watching a few real short videos, and I've been watching videos on the election.
Yeah.
Because I think that this is like some grand part of the play.
Oh yeah.
I don't
know. They got to ramp this thing. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be decided until January. It's going to go into that state legislature.
Yeah, I think who knows what's going on. Because if you read the press, like here in Colorado, we have just one paper basically. Well, we have more, but I get the Denver Post, which really basically is it reprints stories from the New York Times and the AP, and so you just see this one side. Trump is lost. He's a liar. And this isn't in op-eds. This is in the actual supposed news story.
Right. Yeah. Unbiased reporting.
Yeah. So who knows what's really going on? And I watch these, and then I watch things on on YouTube on it, and you get the opposite side. Oh, Trump is going to win. Trump's going to win. And God knows. See, I'm not one of these that thinks he actually knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah. No, me neither. I have no clue.
But I do like watching it, and seeing what's going on, if Biden gets in, I think we'll have another war.
Yeah. Oh, I think either way, they're ramping up the tension on this one deliberately. So I think whoever gets in,
it's a divide and conquer thing.
Absolutely.
To keep us separated. But it has really seriously divided people, and and the mask thing too has divided people too.
Oh, in a huge way.
Yeah. I'm a big anti-masker, but I don't make a big deal of it. I don't go to,
Oh, I'm not built for the confrontation that would happen if I were to go to it.
No, I don't like the confrontation. And so
that would get ugly quick.
You have to wear the mask if you want to go in the store. You have to
wear
the mask. Because we got a mandate from our governor.
Right.
Like all the Democratic states. And so you got to wear your mask. Period. There's not much you can do about it if you want to eat.
Right. If you want to leave your house,
restaurants have all closed. There are no restaurants open except for like McDonald's and stuff.
Right. Yeah, drive-throughs. Because that's sanitary. Yeah.
Of course, it doesn't affect me. I haven't actually gone to a restaurant in years.
Yeah.
So it's not like it has changed my lifestyle at all. But it has really affected a lot of people.
No, well, I do miss. I did have a small social life. I do miss being able to go out to the bars with my friends. But
yeah. I have to admit, I never really did that. But it is depressing. Of course, I live in the middle of nowhere,
right.
So it's not like it really that affects me that much. But. It affects everybody around me, and you notice. But back to Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. It's just amazing the way, because tracing his family back has brought me to this, right? And this is something that I've kind of been looking at for the length of my show. It's been an ongoing investigation.
Yeah, because there's a lot of debate whether Robin Hood existed or not. But
right.
I think he did, and the interesting thing is,
I think he was a Poe.
Is the defeated area of England in a way, in the Lancaster Wars, that's up towards York, and which is the moon, York is the moon.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting about what really happened there, because, when William the Conqueror came into England, he did what's called the harrowing of the North, okay? And basically they went up there and killed everybody. Okay, and dispersed. Everybody fled from the towns and the cities. And
this is what the history tells us happened. Who knows if this was real?
Well, And that's what, with Miss Havisham, a long time ago, I exchanged some, comments with her. And I said, that
Love
I
her.
think that William the Conqueror is a duplicate of William of Orange, who came in on the 1688 on the Great Revolution in England.
Uh-huh.
After all this Cromwell and
Right.
Second Charles and stuff like
Oh, and
that.
it's interesting. Like the Poes fit in with Cromwell. They fit in with the royal court before Cromwell.
I believe that.
You know.
And because I think that William of the Conqueror is a duplicate. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but see, before the second William came in, they had the Black Plague, which killed lots of people. And I think the Black Plague is the same thing as William the Conqueror's harrowing of the North.
Hmm. Yeah.
An elimination of the large swath of the population. And that's,
And sometimes,
who knows?
and I think, for me, I kind of look at these, especially the further back in history as it's presented to us, we go with this stuff. Things like plagues and massacres and these wars. I kind of view them as almost, and I hate to overuse the term, but like they're like red herrings a little bit. Could they just be inserted in there as the reason why we're not finding populations? Or or as a setup for the cycle that they put us through today.
Well, and see, a lot of things restarted right after the King James Bible and during this time of not William the Conqueror, but William of Orange.
Yep.
And the Second Charles and stuff like that. Like Judaism sort of started again in 1666. Okay, there was this big split, and there was Christ, what was his name? I'm having a blank on this too, but there was a Jewish Messiah type of guy
Mm-hmm.
who came out at that time, and he was very important because he had like a libertine, like sexual, sexual revolution Judaism, where everybody had sex with each other and stuff like that.
Huh.
And
just like the old fertility cults of the Canaanites.
Yeah, what the hell was his name? Why am I having blanks? Because he was very, very famous. Oh, his name was Sabbatai Zevi. That's why. Sabbatai Zevi. He was a very important guy. And I think he still has followers to this day.
Huh.
Some things happen in Europe at that time.
My friend Mary is all about, like, there was an episode around that time where the Jews got kicked out of Spain. But I wish I was Mary's cursing me right now.
And see, I think, and I haven't gotten to this yet, but see, I think a lot of the Hispanic people in Latin America, Mexico down to Argentina, a lot of them that was like the actual Jewish diaspora. Okay, a lot of these people got shipped off from Spain to the Americas. And because see, there's a lot of crypto Judaism in the Hispanic population.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Hispanic people are actually Jewish. I don't know if they still are. I don't know how long that lasts.
Right.
How long people can keep something like that going. But because they were suppressed, and I think a lot of the people that wound up in the Americas were actually the exile, the Babylonian exile, were from Spain, and then some of them then were exiled to Northern Europe later, and that's why you have so many dark-skinned, dark-haired Jewish people in like the Slavic countries.
Yeah. Huh.
Because the Slavic, dark-haired people in the Slavic countries aren't a real great mix. So where did these dark-haired Jewish people come from? And of course you have a lot of blonde-haired Jewish people in the Slavic countries too, because that's what people do is they intermarry, right?
Right. Yeah.
And but there are a lot of dark-haired people, long places.
And now, so it was interesting when you looked at the picture of Devereaux, you commented on his red beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you make of the gingers?
Well, I think that they're very important, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Well,
In
because we
England,
have, I mean, yeah, right. I was just gonna say the young princes are both ginger, aren't they?
well, no, Harry is a ginger, and the other one is not. And see, they're like Harry, they're like Jesus and Esau, or Jacob and Esau. The red-haired one and the other one. You know,
Right, which would also be what are those the towers at the gate of the temple, Moab, and shoot, I can't remember the name of the other one.
And Harry, the funny thing about Prince Harry, the red-haired one, is that's what the name Esau means, is Harry. So it's like it's right out there in front of us, uh, and God knows what these people are doing. But in England, there's a huge prejudice against ginger people among the English people. A lot of kids get brought up with like we used to have, prejudice against blacks or Jews or whatever, So there's a prejudice in England against red-haired people. And I don't know where that comes from, you know. But I know that because I have a guy I know who grew up, and he's an American, but he grew up in England. And his parents are both English, and they live here in Colorado now. And he told me he grew up, and he always had a prejudice against ginger people. God knows.
Right, and
it's all about.
So now you were. This is where it gets even more incredible, Tom, because I I forgot about this. Is you're talking about Esu moving among the Qatars.
Yes, among the Qatar, yes.
And it's funny because I always pronounce it either depending on how I read it because my having tunnel vision the way that I do, almost every word I read is phonetic.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I understand, and I don't know the correct way to really pronounce it. I just say it one way. It's
Yeah.
the same with so many words,
Oh
really.
yeah.
You know.
But so the Poe family actually goes back to the Qatars and were exiled in a famous crusade whose name is I talked about it too in the show, but I can't remember the name of the crusade right now. But there was a crusade against them in northern Italy, and some of them were wiped out, but some fled into southern France. And it's the Pope.
Well, that's interesting. So his family came from northern Italy.
Poe's did, yes.
Oh, because the biggest river in Italy is called the Po, and
Right.
Po is rich. It just means river originally.
Yep.
And it was also called the Eridanus.
Yep.
And the Eridanus is well, it could have different meanings, but it also refers to the fallen Phaeton who fell from the sun.
In the cross pattern, photon, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then you've got the Potomac River. That's also with the word Po, right? Po.
Yep.
It just means the river, right?
Yep.
There's so many lies to us. Like the Potomac. That might be the original Tiber River, for the Rome, because, Washington, D.C. might, who knows,
right,
be the original Rome. God knows what the truth is.
Well, I certainly think the original Rome was Baltimore because that's where they put it in America.
Yeah, and that's a real possibility too, and because Baltimore, I don't really know Baltimore well. I've been there a number of times, obviously, because I lived right near there, but I don't really know the city.
Yeah.
And it's got a port. It's
yep.
It's got everything that you would want with for a big city to have, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it does, because that's what cities really, because these people were seafaring people.
Yep.
There's a lot of that in our languages that we can see that, and you've seen these people that make these videos about, how, everything is currency and, banks and stuff like
yep.
that it's all, the Phoenicians and the seafaring people and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's no really doubt about that, I don't think. That the rulers, that's how they got around,
Right.
And that's why it's hard to believe that nobody knew that America existed. Well, how is that possible? Everybody was sailing around.
Right. Right. How did China not get, how is China not in this mix? How is India not in this mix? Right.
There's a book called Pale Ink, written by years ago, like in the 60s or 70s.
What was the name of it?
A woman named Henrietta Mertz. And she points out that, Chinese for sure traveled to North America and probably to Central and South America too. And there's actually a Chinese book about it, and the scholars say, oh, that's legendary, but it's the voyage across the Western Sea, and the Western Sea, or the Eastern Sea, is the Pacific, right? So they voyaged over it, and she shows how, we have all this architecture in the Americas, like the Mayan temples and stuff like that. They look exactly like the temples in Southeast Asia, right? The Buddhist temples.
Yep.
The architecture is the same. They got a lot of pottery and stuff like that. It's the same, and
well, I mean, you definitely. Yeah. It's funny. This is a funny story about my father, actually. When I was young and really started investigating this stuff as like a late, teenager or whatever, having read like Chariots of the Gods and things like this, I was looking at Olmec heads. My father had a keen interest in this stuff as well, and so I was talking to him about the Olmec heads and how they were African, and he was like, "They're not African." And I was like, "Pop, the Olmec heads are African," and I showed him some pictures, and he goes, "They look Polynesian to me." And so, there's definitely, you can see in the facial features, you can see an Asian influence in the genetics.
Well, you can definitely in most of Latin America. It's not everywhere. It depends where you're at. But in Central America and in parts of Mexico, you see a lot of the Asian influence.
Yep.
And less so in the mountains in the Andes. They look more European. But you definitely see an Asian influence all over Latin America and in huge parts of Latin America.
Yeah, and even the Native American population, if you look at some of the oldest Indians, they have very similar like eye shapes and the almondy kind of eye.
Racial mixing, and it's hard. It's hard to really sort it out because the racial mixing is continued, obviously, and so it becomes less and less obvious over the generations. As people get more and more homogenized, and and the one thing I watch, there's some channels I haven't watched in a long time, but there are a couple of channels done by some black guys who are pointing out that they think that the black people were the original inhabitants, that what we call African Americans were original inhabitants here in North America.
In North America, yeah. I'm very interested in that theory. And
when you look at Africans who come to the United States, you immediately can see that they're not native. They're not like African Americans. They don't look anything like them.
Right.
Because what we call African Americans, they don't really have people in Africa that look like them.
No, they're small. The breeding, for lack of a better term, of or it could be, as I think what you're trying to suggest here, and this is something that's very interesting to me, is that they were just a bigger, larger species. There didn't need to be sort of interbreeding to make them a stronger slave race,
Yeah, they were big. A lot of African Americans are strong. Yeah, and that's what we see that. Look at the National Football League. Just mostly black people, right?
Oh God. Well, that is. The National Football League is definitely. If you follow the National Football League, you see genetic manipulation in action. Interbreeding and so forth, right? And as you see so many, these days you're seeing players who are like the grandsons of former players and
Flamenco, he talks about that. He talks about how, these gladiator fights and stuff like that, that was actually something in much later times. It wasn't, the year zero. It was,
right.
In the Middle Ages. And he said that, they were, he implies they were breeding these people, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I think they have some sort of like breeding program going on. And sure that we get these stories about such and such Hall of Fame player. He grew up in extreme poverty in the South, and this and that.
Yeah, you get those stories.
There's more to it than.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And also, I don't know if you remember Jimmy the Greek, back in the 80s, lost his job he was part of the NFL Today show or something like this. And
he said something racial. I can't remember.
He talked about how the black players were better because they were bred to be better. And he lost his job for that.
Okay, well, political correctness.
All right.
You can't actually tell the truth,
No.
Yeah,
But
yeah, because because you look at these people, and I'm not a little guy, but uh, you know, you look at some of these people, and it's like, my God, how did that happen? That these people they look like out of comic books. Some of these people,
oh yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah. You know, they have the technology, the old $6 million man routine. They can build people.
they can build people.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
But I
yes,
mean,
and that's why you get. I haven't watched a college football game in years, but I do know that in college football teams they have like a, it'll be like 150 students are on the team, but only a real small handful of them actually play in the game.
right.
The rest of them are just there so they can say they're on the team, and so their parents can give money to the school and stuff.
Right. Well, they're the reserve meat. Somebody goes down with an injury, they can't play, but you're in.
Yeah. But and then so few of them, the NFL is like, I don't know, it's like 1,500 people or something like that.
Well, on the NFL, you're only allowed to have 53 players on
53 players
on your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so 32 teams, so
Yep.
like
Yeah.
1,600 people plus reserves, so 2,000 people.
Oh yeah.
The whole batch or something like that,
Yep.
2,500, something like that. Not a big group of people.
No.
And like you said, we have generational players. You get, player, Smith. He's the third.
Oh yeah.
Family member to play in the NFL, right?
Yeah. They have good, strong genes. But one thing that interests me about like the whole like African American being the native population to North America, right?
Yeah.
Is that somewhere I found they had the colonization societies. Like in the history, they tell us that this is they're taking slaves and returning them to Africa. But I kind of look at that and go, well, what if they want to create a storyline that has black people coming from Africa? So they actually need to have some black people in Africa. And so that it's an actual sort of they planted Africa with the black people because they were conquering their land here, and shipping them over there.
Black guy named Dane Calloway, he's an interesting guy, and he's done a couple of videos on the
Dane Calloway.
Calloway, yeah, he's done some videos on the supposed transatlantic shipment of blacks.
Yeah.
And showed that didn't happen, that it was impossible, it couldn't happen. And for a lot of different reasons. And it's interesting, most of the university scholars who developed this theory about the African, the African crossing things are Jewish people.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing about Judaism, is there's a lot of hidden agenda amongst educated Jewish people. The Zionist movement was run from the very top. These people had connections with the royal families in Europe. And
oh yeah,
just Jewish people that did it.
Oh no, yeah, there was definitely gentile involvement in the early stages of Zionism. Yeah.
Well, and then they, in World War II, a lot of the upper class Jews had treaties with the Nazis. And said, you send all these people to Israel, to what became Israel, to Palestine, and stuff like that. And so, so we have a lot of history that is actually known, but nobody talks about.
Yeah.
It's just, nobody talks about it, period. And so it doesn't, people know it, historians know it. It's not like it's hidden or anything like that.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they don't have to hide stuff, because they just create so much stuff that it gets lost.
It gets lost, and it becomes not interesting because our history, we get this homogenized version
oh my God.
of history, the good guys and the bad guys, and
right. We have to. And that's another thing too. History is written by the winners.
It's written by the winners, and it's also written by people who weren't there, didn't see anything.
Right. Yeah.
And
right.
And so we get. We get who knows what we get.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. Like looking at the royal family at this time, where Dr. Leonard Poe would have been there, the later part of Queen Elizabeth and into King James, and Charles the First when they're colonizing America, and literature is really starting to become part of the public, and also religion separate, education kind of separating from religion at this time. It's all happening at the same time.
But I don't think education is really separated that much, because Oxford and
Oh,
Cambridge.
no, just on the surface. And it's interesting you brought up Oxford just now, because I have a window open for Oxford on my tabs here. No, they present it as a difference,
Yeah,
but it's really this. It's really the same.
They have like Magdalen College.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah. But so many religious schools you don't think of as religious, even though they have religious names. You don't think of them as religious.
Yeah, Christ Church College.
Yeah.
And
but it's interesting you mentioned Oxford, and this is something I just found out the other day, and was not part of my last video, is that the part of the River Thames that runs through Oxford, they call it the River Isis.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Just in that part of just where Oxford is, just that part of the Thames that runs through Oxford, they call it Isis.
Unfortunately, I've never been to England, so I don't have a real sense of geography. You actually have to be there. You can only look at so many maps and pictures to get a real sense of it. That's why I have a much better feel for Italy, because I lived there most of my childhood.
Right. Yeah, and there's even a feel about it.
Around.
I mean, because when you live in a place, or you've been to a place, there's more than just, there's an atmosphere and an aura that's captured.
Yeah, that's why you could do these videos on Baltimore.
Right. Oh, yeah.
There,
yeah.
And you can never really do that if you're not there.
Right.
I mean, you can't, obviously.
Right. If I move away from Baltimore next year, I'll still be able to do my show, because I'll, have had these experiences.
Well, where are you going to move to?
Oh, I'm not. I'm just I'm just saying, if something like that were to happen.
I have to tell you, I've been. It took me so long to do this video, and not because it's just I didn't have time.
Yeah.
I couldn't get to it. I just couldn't get to it because I have so many little obligations. I'm constantly doing these little things for people in prison.
So you were a defense attorney?
Yeah, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've done it for over 30 years, and I'm tired of it. I got to tell you, I just don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
It's because you have to deal with so many bad people, and the bad people aren't the defendants, okay?
Right.
They're the prosecutors and the judges.
Yep.
Mostly sociopaths become judges. I won't say mostly, but a lot of sociopaths become judges.
Narcissistic ones, I imagine, too.
Yeah, it's because, if you want to judge others, the worst system to have judges is where people who want the job apply for it.
Right.
Because only the worst people want to judge others.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
There's only one judge.
Designed to put the worst people in charge. It's the same with politics in general. People who want power become are elected officials. And that's a system designed for corruption. I mean, look at the people we have now. Joe Biden. He's been in the office for 50 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And people think, they look around at the state, and this is what bothers me about Baltimore, being the democratic city that it is. There's been a Democratic mayor and a Democratic city council in Baltimore since the 50s.
Yeah.
It's I mean, look, I don't need to tell anybody what Baltimore's like today.
Yeah, no, you don't, because Baltimore is like a national discussion.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I joked at the beginning of COVID with a friend of mine. I wonder who's going to kill more people in Baltimore. No, I think I did this on social media, actually. Who's going to kill more people in Baltimore? Is it going to be COVID, or is it going to be Baltimore?
It's going to be Baltimore. And it's like, the football coaches, John Harbaugh and
Yep.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
The way I can tell which one coaches at Baltimore is that John is a synonym for toilet.
I have a friend of my show, Just Wondering, Julianne. She has some connection to the Harbaughs and their family line. She knows something about them. They're connected individuals.
Well, see, that's another thing about football. We talked about the players being genetic freaks. Well, the coaching is so insular. It's the same families over and over again over the generations. And
Yeah.
they come. A lot of them come from the same place. Okay, like Mike Shanahan, who used to coach the Denver
Broncos. Yeah.
Broncos.
Yep.
He went to Eastern Illinois College or something like that. I can't remember. Something like that. Who knows college, A bunch of people that are high up in the NFL went to the same college, like Tony Romo and a bunch of other people.
Right. Oh, what a coincidence.
There's a guy, he's got a website. I haven't gone to it in a long time. It's got the name MM. Let me see. Miles Mathis. Okay. And he has written he should have a YouTube channel and make videos of his essays. He writes these essays because some of them are the most fascinating thing, okay? But one of them, he writes about the Kennedy assassination. He has one of the best things on the Kennedy assassination I've ever read.
Oh, wow.
But he wrote about this school that's it's in the Midwest someplace, Missouri or Illinois or something like that. And it's a private school. And it's just amazing, the famous people that went to this school. And he writes about serial killers too. He says how all these serial killers are fake.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested in that too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy comes from one of the most powerful New England families of all the Bundys.
Really?
And oh yeah. And so it's all just bullshit. And and he didn't put this in his articles, but Colorado has an interesting connection to Ted Bundy. Two former members of the Colorado Supreme Court, one of them used to be the Chief Justice, have connections to Ted Bundy.
Wow.
Now that's not possible.
Right.
Okay? Statistically, okay. How could that be? And I knew both of them.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just so much of we get is just absolute 100% bullshit. But yeah, he's a very interesting guy. Actually, I thought about taking some of his articles and making videos out of them because they are really, different.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look. What was his name?
Miles Mathis, Mathis, and
MM. I just always love those. I don't know if that's alliterative or the MM, like Clark Kent, Peter Parker.
Yeah. The double. I don't know if you ever watched a guy named Jurassic Liars.
No.
He's gone into just sort of future predicting, but he used to do news, a lot of videos on how we get fake news, and he's very funny when he did those. Okay?
I'll have to try to check those out.
Very funny. And one of the things he always says, when you see the double initials, the MM, the AA, or whatever,
yep.
The PP, he loves the PP. He says the PP is just making dick jokes.
Oh yeah, Peter Parker, baby.
And some of them were just funny. He would find these news articles and just show you how they're just absolute 100% bullshit, but in a very funny way. And he got banned from YouTube a bunch of times. But now he makes these predictions about Donald Trump and Seattle, and he's fixated on it.
Huh.
And and he can't believe that he thinks that Donald Trump will have to stay because otherwise his predictions will go away.
He's like the Great Kreskin or whatever.
Yeah, I don't like to make predictions because
I've
learned over the time that people who make predictions mostly get shown up as being wrong. So I like to predict things after the fact.
Right. Oh yeah. Hindsight is 2020.
I have to admit, I predicted to my friends before Donald Trump's first run for office that he was going to win.
Oh yeah.
Because I really just had a feeling that he was going to win it because the Republicans had such crap people running.
Yeah. Oh God.
And he was running against Hillary.
Yeah.
And some people like Hillary, but there's a huge hate Hillary fan club out there.
Well, she was a very evil person.
There's no two ways about that. She's an evil person, I remember when Gaddafi got killed, she was laughing psychotically about it,
When I was in a band, we had a gig the night that Saddam Hussein was executed hung. And so I used to like to dedicate songs, and I dedicated every song to Saddam Hussein's body double that night.
Yeah, I don't believe any of these. Like, I don't think Gaddafi really got killed. Same
Yeah.
with
Oh God! And
Saddam.
the pictures that they
They
show are
don't kill
so
off
horribly
that
phony,
are
you
in
know.
play. I mean, they only have a certain number of actors. They got to keep them around.
Right. There's only so much good makeup can do. Although now with you've seen the deep fake stuff.
No, what's deep fake stuff?
I'll send you a link. Deep fake is like is where you have they're just like a picture of somebody, right? And you animate and then you wear like on your head little sensors or whatever, right? And then you talk and it makes that face talk. Right.
Oh,
And
that's
so
good. That's interesting. Yeah.
so as long as you got somebody who can do a decent enough impression, who knows if what you're watching is real?
It's real. Yes. Yeah. No, and I do. I haven't watched one of these videos in a long time. And they have, I think it's called the 27 Club. Where famous people died at the age 27 or something like that. And some people say all these people came back, and like it's like Jimi Hendrix belongs to the 27 Club.
Yep.
And I really do think that the Christ, what's the actor's name? Morgan Freeman.
Oh, it's Jimi Hendrix?
It's Jimi Hendrix. They look identical.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look now because, Morgan Freeman got his start, I believe, on the Electric Company, which was a children's. I certainly remember watching it as a kid,
Yes, I remember watching a video about him on the Electric Company and how they were doing these obvious sexual innuendo skits for little children.
Oh, I'm sure they were doing that left, right, and center. I mean, not just that show, but the other shows as well. That was. I mean, they were using television to program the children. I mean, I am a victim of that.
We all are.
Right?
Every one of us. Me maybe less than because we didn't have much television when I was a kid in Italy.
Right.
They only really started television around 1960, and they only had one channel, and then eventually they got a second channel. And
wow, that late over there, huh?
It didn't start till like 6 p.m. There was no daytime TV.
Right.
And there were no cartoons.
And even then, when it came on, it was state-sponsored content.
Yeah, and it was for adults.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything geared towards children. And so you watch whatever your parents watched, and you could really only watch it when your parents were watching it back then because, you only had one TV and it wasn't really like,
right. I remember. Yeah. Oh, my son, the intrepid Mr. X has no idea, even just for me I'm 50, I'm going to be 50 next month. When I was a kid, there was 3 channels and you had the 4th channel was public, it was PBS.
Yeah. Yeah, now, God knows, how many channels there really are.
Oh, yeah, hundreds, thousands,
Whatever, It's all theater.
It is. Well, I was just about to say, I mean, do not think for one second, or at least I don't think for one second, that, Trump isn't in there deliberately. His presence was scripted,
Scripted for years in advance.
Yeah.
Years in advance. See, they say Trump is 74. He could be much older, actually, if he is Elvis Presley's dead twin.
Is that what people think, or some people out there that he's Elvis Presley's dead twin?
No, I don't know about some people, but I like to think that.
Really? Nice. That's amazing.
Elvis,
I never heard that before.
People don't really know is Elvis had blonde hair.
Did he?
He dyed his hair.
Huh.
He didn't have to. Yeah, he was a naturally blonde-haired person.
Never knew that either.
A twin, Jesse Garone.
I knew he was. I knew he had a twin who died at childbirth. That I did know.
Yeah. And so Trump being Elvis's twin would make me happy. Trump's father's name was Fred Christ Trump.
Is that right?
Yeah, Fred Christ Trump. And his mother's name was Mary.
That's amazing.
So Christ and Mary gave birth to Trump.
Unbelievable. All right, Tom. Well, I have to. Unfortunately, it's 11:30, and my son is now done with school for the day.
It was good talking to you.
We'll talk again very soon. It was a great pleasure.
Listen, I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Take care.